Rolling audio. Turn that toward me. So I've had the Osmo Pocket 3 for over a year now, and I wanted to make this update video to talk about the ways I've been using it, the ways I've seen it used, and if it's still worth getting going into 2025. So if you don't already know, hence the name, the Osmo Pocket 3 is a pocket camera that is capable of doing 4K 10-bit footage with a 1-inch sensor, and it can do 4K up to 120 frames per second. It can do more than that, like it can take photos and do some hyperlapses, but those are some of the main highlight points that everybody's buying this for. I think it's a great tool for people who are just here on YouTube or just vlog, all the way to people who do marketing material for their small business or even a large business who just need to create consistent social content. But I can also see this being used in feature film scenarios such as documentaries. Having something this compact and small to be able to pull out on the spot and be up and filming in a matter of seconds, I can see that being useful. Also, you can get a small suction cup car mount that is affordable to be able to suction cup something like this on the outside of a car, and it's also a great addition to proper cinema setups to have a camera on the outside of a car while you're filming on the inside and whatnot, or just having that second angle, or a camera that maybe doesn't cost as much as your higher end cinema camera that you don't want to strap to the end of a car. And the suction cups you can get, I have this one here from Elonzi. I think it was like 45, maybe 60 bucks, somewhere in there. But it's really affordable and it holds really strong. I've actually used it on heavier camera setups too before, so it's going to hold the Osmo Pocket, no problem. Also, Tilta came out with this new, I think it's one of their Alien Arms series for the Osmo Pocket specifically, and that looks like an awesome tool for filmmakers who are needing to strap this thing to a car. I've strapped this to a car, and another feature that makes it really cool is being able to use your phone on the inside of the car. You can have your phone mounted up in there, the camera on the outside of the hood, or wherever you may place it, but you can have your phone inside the car and monitor the image and be able to move the gimbal around and start and stop recording. If you want to see more about what this camera is, I did a review a year ago when I first got my hands on it. I'll link right here. I have also used this thing in podcast scenarios as a wide angle. I wouldn't use it in a high-end pro setup for like a talking head scenario if you're cutting in other cameras, because it is noticeable when you're cutting from something that, for me, I was cutting from an FX6 to this is my wide, and yeah, you can see a image integrity difference there. Not saying it's bad, it's just when you put it one-to-one next to those cameras, it's more noticeable. But I could definitely see this used in wedding filmmaking. I used the OG Osmo back when I used to do weddings, and I used it for a couple establishing shots outside of venues, whether you're walking up to the building and getting those cool pan shots. I even had, I think it would have been the Ronin M or the first Ronin S back at that time, but setting that up and moving the camera around was tough, especially if you've done weddings, you would know what I'm talking about. Just being able to pull this out as an additional shot real quick while holding your other camera, I've done that before, and back when I had the original Osmo Pocket, which the quality is nothing compared to this one now. But the main reason we purchased this camera last year was to get something that is small, to be able to take on every shoot, to pop up and shoot BTS and all kinds of behind the scenes and marketing material for our production company. Having something like this makes it really easy to do, and it doesn't take away from any of our cameras that we need on set. Another great use for this camera is top-down content. If you need another angle top-down on whatever it is you may be doing, that's something Caitlin's been using it for over on her channel, which I'll link her stuff here below. She's been using this thing probably more than I have, honestly. Now, when you first get the Osmo Pocket, I bought the base, not the base kit. I didn't buy the creator combo, and everybody was saying get the creator combo because you'll regret it. And I have to say I agree with them, because a lot of the stuff I ended up buying later. The creator combo comes with, it's a ProMIS filter, you get a wide angle adapter, which I really did not care much for the wide angle. I didn't think I needed that. And you get the DJI lav mic. I didn't care about that because I had the OG original DJI lav mics that I was still able to plug into the Pocket and use, which, as you can see here, I'm using it. I actually used those in a Pocket podcast setup, just using this and 2 lav mics and tabletop tripods. And I may do a video on that later. If you guys are interested, let me know. It was just something I thought was pretty neat to be able to have this kind of content creation power in a small bag, a very small bag, lightweight bag at that too. But I did end up selling my original DJI Max sets and upgrading mainly for that 32-bit float and the seamless connectivity to this. So it was worth it for me. It may not be worth it for you. You could still pick up the old DJI mics and be able to plug that transmitter and it'll work just the same, but you won't get the 32-bit and some of the other extra features that come with the new DJI Mic 2s. Now, one of the things that I hear a lot of people say is, why don't I just use my phone, and why do you need something like this? And you may not. Your phone will work perfectly fine for you. It just depends on what it is you're doing and what you want out of the camera, and what you want out of the camera. We're into the camera conversation, which we're not going to go into here. But I'll tell you why I prefer to have a separate device than my phone. One reason is I only got the Google Pixel 9, which, if you're familiar with, doesn't have the best video camera, not a lot of video features. But if you do have something like the newer iPhones, I think the 15 and up, where they have the ProRes RAW options, which I have shot with, and the image is mind-blowing for a phone. It's the first time I've seen a phone be able to cut in with some cameras, and it'd be hard to tell. I like having a separate device on me whenever I go out and I need to use it. It's just having the separation. When I grab this and I pull it out, I'm going to shoot with it. I think differently. It functions differently when it's in my hand, and it's mainly just that separation of the creativity. But there is another feature of having a mechanical stabilization on the camera itself is not the same as having in-body stabilization in the phone. So a mechanical stabilizer, I'm gonna try to explain this easily and quickly, is stabilizing the sensor as I move around. It's stabilizing it as it's being recorded. Digital stabilization is doing all kinds of software work where it's cropping and moving the image. So if your shutter speed is double your frame rate and you get the natural motion blur, you're gonna get some weird smearing effects in that and some unnatural movements. Whereas a gimbal, not saying it's natural, but it's gonna be a lot more smoother, and you're not gonna get that smear effect, and you're gonna get a better quality image overall. So if you're using this thing and you're wanting it to look, dare I say, cinematic, I don't like using that word. I can go into that about my feelings on where that word should be used and what cinematic actually means, but we're not gonna talk about that here. But if you want it to look more high end, you're gonna need ND filters. And why you need ND filters is because you're gonna wanna set your ISO as low as possible in this thing. It gets pretty rough when you start getting into like the over 500, 800-ish. ISO, in my opinion, is almost unusable. You can use it, just depends on your own standard of what you think's okay when it comes to noise in an image. But keeping it lower is always going to be better. And then when you have your shutter double your frame rate, if you're shooting 24 frames, your shutter's going to be at 1/50th. So what do you do if it's too bright out? You're going to need ND filters. Now I got these ND filters from K&F Concept. They're variable ones, but I also got the set sent to me by Tellison? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. But I didn't buy these. They've sent them to me, and I wasn't required to make a video, so just full transparency there. I tried them, and I do really like the ND filters, so I'll link those below too. But the K&F ones are variable, and these were not variable. They're the one-stop ones, which there are pros and cons to both, which I can talk about in another video. But both are great, and they're awesome to have, but you will need some ND filters, so pick yourself up some. Another filter you may want is a polarizer. And what a polarizer does is help cut some of those reflections, whether you're filming trees, the sky, or water, or it's through the windshield of a car, which is, I feel like a lot of people who are shooting with this thing are shooting a lot of that kind of content. So polarizer is going to help you cut through those, and you can get polarizers that have certain stops of ND as well, but having a polarizer will help you cut through all that, especially if you're doing it on car shots. Having that be able to cut through the reflections on the glass is pretty magical. Now, do I regret buying the Osmo Pocket 3? No, not at all. It is pretty expensive for a tiny pocket camera, especially when you got something like your phone. But as I mentioned before, a lot of these features here, I just prefer this over a phone, even if I did have an iPhone. I'm not saying it's better than the iPhone. If you have an iPhone and that's what you have, you don't necessarily need this camera. But that's up to you to decide on what it is that you actually need versus wants. But just about everybody I've showed this thing to and have showed the footage to, whether it's mine or seeing what other content creators are doing with this thing, end up buying it and are sold pretty quickly. I showed the Osmo Pocket 3 to my friend Shalandon a while back. What do you think of the Osmo Pocket?
I think the Osmo Pocket is one of the best creations of technology that we have thus far. Listen, everybody needs an Osmo Pocket. I'm getting one pretty soon, so don't worry about it.
He's been using this camera nonstop and getting more out of it than I have. He's been using it for client work and even his own YouTube channel, but I'll let him talk about that.
Oh man, I love how compact it is. It's easy to use. It's user friendly. So if you're really into being a professional in what you're doing, right? you still get that from this, but also for a person that just wants a small little hobby, something just to kick back, do some behind the scenes, it's real easy to use, something like that. So it gives me that wide range of capability, and it helps me to get to creativity like that.
Yeah,
you know?
you pull it out, you flip it, and it's like everything's out of the way, and you just
Right.
get to creating. This is something I've been recommending to a lot of people, and I feel like, I mean, someone else told me about the Osmo Pocket 3 and sold me right away.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've told a lot of other people about it, and they've been sold right away.
Yeah,
when they see
you
it.
evangelize the whole department. So I have to say it's a must buy. It is dope, and I'm telling you, it's funny because I remember the day we were out there, and when I seen it in operation, I was like, guess what? I'm getting me one. And now you're shooting on mine right
Yes,
now. So
yes, this is Shalandon's
Yeah.
here. He did end up getting one.
yeah. So it's actually dope. It's super dope. I love it.
So what are some things you've been using this for? Because I know when you got yours, you've definitely used it more than I have, and you've been pushing its limits.
So what I've been using it for, I used it for a wide shot on my podcast. And it's very good. It's funny because somebody's like, you got a new look, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I want to see how this works. I want to see how it holds up with the color grading and everything. Oh, it's nice. So I use it for my podcast. I use it for a lot of content that I would use for the phone, social media content. That's why I use this though. It replaces the phone for me, and it gives me a better quality than the phone does.
Yeah, I agree. It's a bigger sensor than a lot of phones out there too. And there's something about having a separate tool.
Yeah.
The phone I use for other things, but having
Right.
that tool that does the one thing, and it's more inspirational to grab and use.
Yeah. This is how I want to say it, like it's a giant built into a compact body.
Yeah.
Right? It does so much. So it's a beast, man.
If you were to show somebody 10 years ago, this would blow their mind.
I would blow their mind. Like I would see you using a small camera and laugh at you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
what is
When
that?
you see the image come out of this, it surprises you. It surprises me. Like,
Yeah.
what it is. And like you said, you've been shooting a podcast on this. Like what we're
Yes.
doing now. This
Uh-huh.
literally fits in our pocket here.
Absolutely.
Which, would you say this has changed anything about the way you create content in any
Yes.
way?
Like I said, it changes the speed of how I create content, and how fast and efficient and how easily I can get to the creative side of things instead of working on the technical side of things. And as you know, as a creative, like we don't want to spend time with the technical details when I like to spend time on the details of creativity.
Yeah,
This helps.
It's out of the way.
Yeah, and so that's the main thing for me. That's what really sold me, is like I see the possibilities and I'm like, I'm buying it now.
Yeah, it's really a content creator's dream.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
your podcast you mentioned, you want to plug it?
Yeah, Social Remedy TV, man. And this month is Women Empowerment Month for us. We're doing a Women Empowerment series. We have some great individuals. Right now, we're about to release this episode. Is called Hidden Secrets That Every Woman Leader Knows. You definitely got to go check it out. It's on YouTube, Social Remedy TV podcast.
I'll link it right below.
Yeah. And
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shalandon.
oh man, anytime.
So after a year of owning this camera, I haven't even used it to its full potential, and I'm going to be using it a lot more going forward, especially here on this YouTube channel and doing more BTS on more types of content that we're working on. So I definitely don't regret buying this, and I see it carrying its value through 2025. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you liked it. I will see you in the next one.